Orgasmic Enlightenment, where the sexual and spiritual come together. I'm Kim Anami, and I'm a holistic sex and relationship coach and a vaginal weightlifter. In this show, we explore all things intimate. I believe that our sexual energy is life force, creative energy, and we can use it to shape our worlds, strengthen our relationships, and self-actualize. I blend the most avant-garde information from neuroscience, ancient sexual practices like Tantra and Taoism, to renegade wellness modalities to show you how to create gourmet sex in your lives. Come one, come all. The well-fucked man. What does a well-fucked man look like? I have spoken about the well-fucked woman concept in my work for over a decade. It's an idea that I first started thinking about even years before I used it in my work. And this was to describe the effects, the visible, tangible effects of a person in tune with and inhabiting their sexual energy. The idea is that it's so obvious that it is noticeable to other people. Women radiate and glow. They move differently, they speak differently, they dress differently. They emit a brilliance that is so palpable and attractive that men will leap across the street to get close to it. They will get on planes and fly across the world just to be near it. This is the essence of a well-fucked woman. She is wearing her sexual energy and fully embodied in it. The same thing happens to men. When he is well-fucked, as in when he is occupying his full masculine and sexual self, he changes. His body changes, his face changes, his cock changes, and all of those transformations reverberate out from him and into every area of his life. Of course, his intimate relationship improves dramatically. He can have sex for hours. He can come or not when he wants to. He is giving his woman multiple vaginal life-changing orgasms and throat-gasms and anal-gasms. He sees the changes in his work and business, his finances, the opportunities that magically come to him without effort, especially after an epic sex date. He sees the differences in himself as a more patient and loving father and a more supportive and compassionate friend. He is the well-fucked man to his well-fucked woman and becomes the man he was always meant to be. Today, our well-fucked all-star is Mark. Mark is the husband to Amanda, who we've had on the podcast already as an all-star in her own right. You can hear her version in the Cock Lovers of the World Unite podcast episode from about a month ago. Mark is going to share his perspective as the other half of this well-fucked couple and the impact that up-leveling their sex life has had on all parts of his life. Well-fucked all-stars. All right, welcome, Mark. It's great to have you here.
Thanks, Kim. It's great to be here with you.
So you have come into this work via your lovely wife, Amanda, who was taking my salons. And she then manifested these beautiful changes in herself that really became the catalyst for you to want to embark on this work with her. So tell us a little bit about that, how that unfolded for you.
Well, yeah, that's absolutely correct. My lovely wife, Mandy, was the one that introduced me to your program. And she tells a story. I think she's told it to you and your team that when she first came across the work, which was sort of some years ago, she was very keen to partake. But knowing that I'm a bit of a tight ass, she sort of wasn't comfortable bringing it to me. So about 18 months ago, 2 years ago, she finally sort of said, look, I've got to do this work. I've been looking at Kim Anami's work. It looks amazing and I've got to do it. And so I agreed. You know, we love each other very much. So I wasn't about to deny her what she really wanted to do. And I said to her just plainly, I said, look, you do the work, darling. I 100% support you, but there's just no way I've got the time to do it. We've got businesses running internationally.
You go learn how to give better blowjobs. I will support that process.
I'm on
but
board with that. I
but I'm
looked at
pretty
it.
busy beyond that.
She showed me some of your podcasts, and I went, look, I can accept you doing that course. That's okay. But honestly, I'll just be the receiver on all of this. I'm too busy. But I really support you doing it. So that was my approach. And then I think about 4 or 5 weeks into your course, I was just seeing these just revolutionary and evolutionary changes in her, mostly in her approach to herself. I mean, obviously, I was on the receiving end of a lot of benefits of your work. But ultimately just what was happening for her, who she was becoming, her changes in thought processes, her ability to adapt in our family and our business and things like that was just amazing. So I kind of went to her. She'd already said, it'd be great if you could do the work at some point, or maybe have a look at Kim's work. And so I think at week 5, I signed up for Sexual Mastery for Men, and I came to her and I said, look, how can I not do the work? Like, I mean, I'm looking at you, I'm looking at what's happening for us from just one of us doing the work, and which is you. And obviously, so she said, I signed up, and she was just like, I mean, in terms of turning your wife on or making her, even more voracious, that was pretty much one of the best things I could have done, which I hadn't planned. That wasn't one of my desired outcomes necessarily, but it was a pretty good one. So that was how I came about doing your work. Yeah. So there were obviously amazing changes in Mandy, and so that's why I signed up. I was obviously not. I was not aware of what I was in for, in terms of signing up for the course and really what it was going to focus on and do for me or for us again, and then again our family and our businesses. So it was not what I had expected. It was just far more.
What did you expect, and how was it different? Like, did you think there would just be some great tips on oral sex? And
yep.
And then it was like, whoa, this actually encompasses my whole life and my whole growth. Why don't you explain that?
That's 100% it. That's 100% what it was about. I kind of thought, obviously not seeing the work specifically doing, the female side of what Mandy was doing. I didn't understand the content. So when I dived in, I thought it was going to be, tips on cunnilingus, tips on, all the things that I would like more skills and more information on, to just be a better lover and a better husband and things like that. So, but it was, I mean, it is all of those things too, but it's just so much more. I mean, I think without giving the content away, I think your first salon is about cleaning the glass and, keeping a very honest and transparent arrangement happening with your partner, and I guess in all facets of your life. And you walk away from that salon going, yep, okay, I've got a little bit of work to do there. And then doing that work is it's phenomenally challenging, it's phenomenally deep, and it's the changes that it creates through doing it it's just massive. So we had some stuff to clean off the glass that we kind of weren't even aware of. And in doing all of that just then, it's like you really know what you're doing, because it just lays that foundation for that next salon, and then the next salon, and then the next salon. And, without doing it in that kind of order, and even, during your sort of integration weeks where you circulate back, you just always got more work to do. We have a really clean glass, Mandy and I, and it's one of the differences now. It's probably one of the most significant changes for us doing the work. And there was nothing super dirty that needed to be cleaned or anything like that. It was just radical honesty and about everything. And that's opened her up. So my wife was already very open to things in our marriage, but being radically honest and seeing how raw at times that can make it for both parties it's been huge, but it's a lot of work. You've got to commit.
Yeah, and I'll just to clarify for anyone who isn't that familiar with my work, I use a metaphor of the concept of cleaning the glass, as though there's a clean slate of glass between two people, and the more that you're open and honest, that glass remains clear. But the more that you operate on a don't ask, don't tell, or sins of omission, or outright lies with each other, then you have debris and junk and mud accumulate on the glass, and eventually that builds a wall. And so a huge part of my work is encouraging people to really commit to and practice radical open honesty. And yes, it is some work and retraining, especially if people aren't used to that. We've been told this story culturally that it's better to tell white lies, right? Don't rock the boat, just sweep that under the carpet and hope it'll go away. But then the carpet becomes this giant mountain of unresolved issues. And so in doing that, what's I think beautiful and people tend to realize is that the more they keep that glass clean and that communication open, that is actually a kind of foreplay that actually as a precursor to arousal and sex, because that act of opening yourself, as you said, being raw, being vulnerable, and really revealing is very, very sexy. It's very arousing and often leads to the best cataclysmic sex and deepest orgasms, because people are really letting themselves be seen. And to be seen by your partner in that very deep way is extremely powerful.
Yeah, great explanation, and that's kind of exactly what happened as a result of all of that. So, the level of depth and openness that Mandy, achieved and that I achieved as a result of that honesty. And then, as much as some of that honesty is hard, some of it's actually a bit of fun and does also lead to some other stuff. We'd never really talked about what our own sexual fantasies were with one another, and I'd always assumed I'd kind of had a reasonably good idea of what hers were, and she assumed mine. But there's always dark spaces that you don't talk about, and things like that ultimately you get to talk about, and then you get to go, well, you know what, I'm open to that, and I'm open to that. And I think your phrase, I think in one of your podcasts was, or maybe even Mandy said it, she said, anal sex that doesn't necessarily have to be a birthday, or an oral sex that doesn't have to be a birthday treat. It can just be it's Tuesday night, I've got some blockages, and I remember we were talking about that other stuff you wanted to do. Let's do it. The kids are in bed early. Let's do it.
So explain that more. When you say I've got some blockages, let's have anal sex, what does that mean to you?
One of the things, where do I start? So I think you used the phrase that you keep a lot of shit blocked up our asses, and I'm a fairly highly strung, tense guy, so and I work pretty hard, so yeah, I get pretty stressed and things like that, and Mandy, Mandy sort of is this quintessential feminine, beautiful woman. So, there's prim and there's proper, and then there's kind of having shit go on in your life, which kind of causes blockages and stresses. And, they happen mentally, they happen, sometimes they happen in your throat where you can't speak, or they happen in your chest and you can't talk to one another and things like that. And we found through doing the work and obviously opening up to the various different practices that, anal sex at times can relieve a lot of pressure, and sometimes just getting fucked in the ass is something that needs to happen. But as much as that can sound probably not in your setting, Kim, but in a lot of settings probably a bit too much. It's when you've got this open, honest relationship with one another, and you can say to each other, I think I need oral sex, or I think I need to be fucked in the ass. I've got this going on in my life. Then that's kind of a beautiful thing, particularly when it's with your partner, the person you love, and the shit works. So you get fucked, and you go, that's so releasing. That's relieved everything that was going on. It was spot on. I was spot on in knowing I needed it, or Mandy was spot on knowing she needed it. and then bang, you're back on track, whatever it was. So
So you can see that like the sex is medicine part of it, that when you actually, all of your life stresses, I say everything is written on the body, right? And so when we carry stresses and issues and stuff, it like we wear it, it rests within us. Wim Hof calls it the issues in our tissues. And I always talk about how sex is this magical, transformative, rejuvenating way of taking that stuff and alchemizing it and changing it, that the raw power of sexual energy, that is one of its gifts, is to transform things, to rebirth us, rebirth ourselves. And so using all sex acts consciously is the way that I, hold as the ideal for people to look at their intimate lives, right? Like, okay, so I'm really stressed today. I think if your cock was going to go up my ass today, that might really help me to process some stuff. Like that's it, right? This conscious application of using these acts and these energies between us.
Yeah. Well, and certainly we weren't in this space 2 years ago, 18 months ago. Like, I think we tried anal sex and it just kind of wasn't going to happen. Like 2 years ago, like I say, we had a great we had a great sort of sexual relationship, and we were open to stuff, maybe not quite as open as we are now, but we were certainly open to doing lots of different things. But the work that you've done is kind of, which I really appreciate, thank you very much, has really opened Mandy and I up, but to really giving things a go. Like our first ever sex weekend was not so long ago. It was maybe about 6 months ago, and we'd planned this sex weekend. We have, between Mandy and I, we have 6 children, so it's getting time away for a weekend on our own is quite difficult. But we managed to do it, and we commit to do it now 3 to 4 times a year. And we've since had another sex weekend, so that's been great as well. But on our first sex weekend, Mandy said, "Oh, look, I really want to try and do deep throating. Like, we've never really done deep throating. Done a lot of oral sex, never done deep throating." And I was like, "Oh, okay, I've seen a bit of that. So yes, we'll definitely." And she goes, "No, we're gonna work at it." And I'm like, "I'm hoping it's not too much work, but yes, let's give it a go."
Oh, you're so accommodating.
Yeah, it wasn't all bad, but that was something that we hadn't done, and now we do. And it's I said before about sometimes you might need it up the arse, sometimes you might need it in the throat. Mandy is just so intuitive. She'll kind of she'll say, she said to me this morning, we haven't been having long enough sex dates. We haven't been, we've certainly been having frequent enough sex dates, but we just haven't been having long enough sex dates. So they've become a pattern. So she said, we need to do more of that. And we need to, and need to do more in the throat, and we need to do more, and I'm just like, yep, okay. So we need to make more time for that. We need to, and we do. And it's hard, as much as it does sound, and it is obviously amazingly good to be a guy that has a wife that comes to you and says, "I need more oral sex," or "I need more longer sex dates." We're both busy. She's busy, I'm busy. And so you just really have to make the time. But the dividends are just enormous. The rewards and the connection and what it does to the rest of your life is just massive, really massive. So.
Wasn't there a comment? I think she said something. She was working on some throat chakra, like expression issues. And there was a moment where you said something like, "Honey, I think you really need my dick in your throat." Like you gave her that sexual prescription of some medicine that she might need.
Well, that's true. So sometimes it comes from her and sometimes it comes from me. But obviously from time to time, she's got stuff going on, and I think she was talking about she was struggling to talk to someone in our family about some some conflict issues that she had, and I think we were at the dinner table. The kids were in bed, and I just said, I just really think you probably need some cock in your throat. Like it needs to be deep, and maybe that will help. Again, very accommodating, but maybe that will help. And it sounds ridiculous, and it sounds like you're just doing it for the benefit of the oral sex, but it did clear what she needed clearing. So, out of that came oral sex for me, and her going, you know what, you were spot on, you were right, and that that intuition, or that desire to continue to have oral sex, but it's actually intuition, not that desire, but that intuition it comes from that clean glass. It comes from that honesty, and like it's being open to all of those different things, which just sounds so simple, but honestly, without blowing smoke up your ass necessarily, the ability to kind of put it all together is you just can't do it on your own. Like, I would never have seen to be doing the work in the way that we've done it, without having someone to guide you, without having a program to follow, which sounds weird, but because it's not just oral sex, and it's not just 69ing or cunnilingus or it's the process, and you can't get all those benefits without doing some of the going back and looking at what, like your two pump and dump situation. Like, you can't get to the end if that's what you're doing up front. So as a guy, you've got to go back and look at why I'm doing that. What's making me do that, so that I can stop doing that and then start doing more of what I would like to be doing.
Yeah.
So yeah,
yeah. And it's using these acts consciously. Like, I think in my work, they're not just superfluous. These are a checklist of outrageous or porn inspired actions, like, say, anal sex or deep throating or, whatever, that for me, they're always about using these consciously, and the way that you're saying, to actually dislodge stuckness in our systems, or to further clean that glass within us as individuals, or within the entire canvas of the relationship. And that brings us closer together. And so let's talk about that. So then the end result of that, as you are doing this internal work as couples, or as a couple, when you are working on your intimate connection, both emotionally through this glass clearing, and then sexually through clearing debris and energy in your body, what happens in your outer life? So how have you noticed differences in you as a man, in you as a business person, in you as a father?
Yeah, okay. Well, so I'm well left field of perfect in terms of making the mistakes that I make in terms of being a dad, in terms of business, and Mandy as my partner. But I guess doing the work has kind of, it's highlighted for me that we're going to make mistakes, and we're going to be pretty human, all of the time. But in terms of learning from those mistakes and accepting and moving forward, and then growing from those mistakes and being better the next time round, that's essentially kind of what's happened for me. So, I've got older children and I've got young children. So as a dad, I've got an opportunity to do things, differently for younger children than I did with my older children. So I've always worked very hard. I've always been in my own businesses and had high stress jobs, which has meant, lots of different things for my children. That hasn't changed in terms of my job, but the way I behave, the way I interact now with my kids and my family, as a businessman that's done this work, as a father that's done this work, it's completely different. I'm sort of, when I'm present, I'm far more present. I'm accepting of the fact that I have a limited amount of time that I get to spend at home with my family, with work being what it is. So, hence I'm 100% there. That's come from radical honesty with my wife, radical honesty with my kids. And in terms of business, well, it's a really hard one to explain, I guess. And and I don't fully understand why, but I mean, Mandy does. She's far more in tune with this side of things, but opportunities have seemed to have presented themselves in our business life. You and I spoke earlier about how challenging things are right now in the world with everything that's going on. And I don't refer to the specifics of it because it's just so ridiculous to continue talking about what pervades in every part of our lives these days. But, essentially it makes life more challenging. It makes travel, work, growing a business overseas just harder and harder. But what's happened, and as I say, I don't specifically understand why, other than trusting, I guess, in the universe a little bit, but opportunities have presented themselves as a result of those challenges and what I would call, in my business environment, somewhat catastrophes that have then been able to be spun on their head and presented as opportunities, and in reality, massive opportunities. So I guess it's the way you kind of look at things. So you get punched in the face at times, and then you either fall down and don't get back up, or you go, wait a minute, what's that trying to tell me? Do I need to keep heading in that direction, or should I be heading in another direction? And it's this, I've got the same businesses operating today that I had 2 years ago, pre 2020, pre 2019. They're just heading in a completely different and more positive direction. And they're exciting. It's still massive amounts of hard work. It's still, grinding and challenging every day, but the opportunities that have presented themselves, which I just could never have predicted. But again, they've only come out of the fact that we've been doing our work. We've been, trusting in each other, trusting in the universe, trusting in our partners in business and things like that, and trusting that the right thing will happen. And that's what's happening.
So you would attribute that additional strength, optimism, perseverance to that built up stronger connection in your relationship with your partner, with Amanda.
Absolutely. Because I just wouldn't, like I said, getting punched in the face time and time again through a business sort of situation, it makes it very hard to stay positive, very hard to just get up and keep going, and my place of comfort, my place of assurity is to come back to Mandy and just talk about these challenges, and we usually talk and then we make love, or we have sex, or we fuck, or whatever it is that needs to happen. That is almost 100% of the time what happens. We talk about what's going on, good, bad, or indifferent, and then we sort of, as you use the word, alchemize, we fuck on it. So, and it materializes in a different way. And if I'm not there or she's not there, one of us is always there. So, we'll bring each other to where we need to be.
So one of you is holding the fort, so to speak, and if the other one gets a bit spun out, or like in a tizzy mentally, we might say, and the other one can kind of pull you back. Because in order to do that, that means that the tether between you guys could never really be that far off, right? Because if you guys were really estranged, you wouldn't be able to do that. It means that you guys are doing the ongoing work to stay connected, so that if one of you is starting to stray off course a little bit, you can just pull them back in. You'll respond to their gesture and recalibrate with each other.
Exactly. No, you verbalized it perfectly, because from time, usually it's only one of us off kilter, which is perfect. So the other one's in line, and they can drag the other person back. Sometimes it's both of us. We're both spinning out of control for whatever reason.
And what do you do? What do you do when it's the two of you?
Well, we tend to just have sex, but also what we will do is we will kind of try and understand where one of us or the other is at, and usually someone's deeper in a spin and whatever, and then the other person just has to hold the space to be the one that's not in their spin, not out of control. So okay, so for now I'm just going to have to hold that space and bring bring Mandy back, or she's doing the same thing, you know. And I'll be, to credit her, more often than not, it's her holding that space and bringing me back. So, but you know, we both do it for one another. So, yeah, that's exactly what happens. And it's, you're right. Like without having done that work, Kim, you wouldn't even know to do it.
Exactly.
You'd resent them. You'd be like, oh shit, you're going on about all your work crap, and you're stressed, and it's fucking stressed all the time. I get it. Yeah, it's stressful. And she's like, oh well, you're managing the kids and the house and your work. It's all, you know, that would be your usual response to one another if you're underfucked or if you're not connected or all that sort of stuff. But it's not. I mean, it's not that. It's the same shit, but it's just handled completely differently now.
What I'm hearing is that you guys really have the reframe that I try to convey to everybody, which is that your relationship is your power source. That is your place to go back and to plug in and refuel, and with whatever onslaughts happening in your work, your lives, the outer world, you come back to each other continually as that place to replenish, to rebalance, to center, and then go back out into the world. And it sounds like you guys are living that, right? Where now you've trained yourselves, or you've reinforced it to the point that when these things are happening, you know that instead of pulling away from your partner and, you know, kind of going into an isolated, independent state, survival state, you're like, no, ultimately we have more power together. And we know that we can harness the superpower of our connection to conquer anything. And we'll do it faster at this quantum leap speed.
That's exactly right. That's exactly what we do. And again, you're right. Like I definitely would pull away previously with stress. You know, Mandy, what's going on? And I'm like, I'm just stressed. What is it? Me? Is it anything? I said, no, it's just work. And then you'd be at this island, and you know, it would just last, you know, because the stress doesn't go away. So, you know, it would just go on, and now it just doesn't. I mean, we still fall into those patterns from time to time, which just highlights we need to do more work. You know, I need to do more self-work, or she needs to do more egg work, or whatever it is. We just know we have. It's a default. So even though it might not be easy to come back together and make that connection because you want to isolate, you want to push them away, we don't. We choose not to. And, you know, it is ridiculous how quickly that energy then changes as a result of coming back together, even though you're fighting it. Like you're actually going, I don't fucking want to come. No, I just want to be over here in my man space being a dickhead. I don't want to come back. And no, but you do it. And they're doing the same thing. You know, the women are like, yeah, you're not really turning up with that kind of little boy behavior and all that sort of stuff. So, okay, we come back together and bang, you know, it's just, you're right. It was just, actually, I've just seen a path out of that. I've just seen a clear way to get past all of that shit that was going on. And it was from coming back together.
Hashtag fuckspo. You know that hashtag inspo or inspiration? It's fuckspo, getting that divine connection reestablished within yourselves through each other and your genitals. So she tells a great story, or, you know, you guys were experimenting with the idea of, okay, we've got a big business meeting, or you do, let's give you some good sex, get some good loving up before this meeting and see what happens. And so what did happen? What was the difference when you did that specifically to prepare for your meeting?
Yeah, well, it was probably one of those challenges that we were talking about before. And so what we did was, well, Mandy said, you're stressed and you've got so much going on. She said, we've got a little Harry Potter room at work that we store some stuff in. So So we went into the Harry Potter room, and she gave me oral sex, and work was going on, and it always goes on, but the sex was amazing, and so we finished in the Harry Potter room, and we came out, and I went straight into my Zoom, which was a Zoom meeting. So it was an opportunity to take our business to another country effectively, which is actually close to you guys. Well, I'm assuming you're in the States, but so we wanted to manufacture our business, wanted to build our manufacturing business overseas. So one of the opportunities that came out of that meeting was essentially to create another manufacturing plant in another part of the world, which would mitigate a lot of the challenges that were going on with the world at the moment, and bring us so much closer to our market for one of our products. So that was, that literally came out of a session that we had in the Harry Potter room, that then came to a Zoom meeting with our respective business partners and partners in Mexico. So yeah, it was very enlightening.
So what you're saying is it lubricated, it greased the wheels of that meeting?
The meeting was about the challenges we were facing, and I don't know who came up with the actual concept around the room, but essentially, the meeting was how we were going to deal with the challenges. And what came out of the meeting was how we just elevate our business to a just completely other level by this what seemed like a ridiculous idea. It felt like if we'd have had this idea a month earlier during everything that was going on, it just would have been like that. Are you crazy? That's insane. And then we alchemize the pressure and the love that we have for one another, and take it to this meeting and go, poof, this is what we need to do. It's clearly and everyone's like, you know what? That's probably going to work. That's probably going to work. And I'm like, of course it's going to work. Cool. That's exactly what we need to do. Yet an hour earlier, I'm like, what are we going to do? What are we going to do? Yeah. So yeah, it just created the ideas.
Yeah, fantastic.
Can I hold on one sec? One of my son's just going to work, so I'm just cool. I'm not going. Hey, buddy. You have a good day. Do you want to say hi to Kim? Hi, Kim.
Hello.
My son Emil.
Hi, Emil.
Hello.
Love you, buddy.
Love you too.
You give Harper a kiss for me?
That's to stop his bad dreams.
Love you, bub. See, that's an interesting thing, Kim. I would probably not have stopped an interview even, so whether this was for us or for work or anything, I would probably not have stopped it for that, but the work has allowed me to kind of just, what's right for me as a dad, him as my son, my wife. Do you know what I mean? It's given me a better sense of self.
It sounds like more heart integration, right? So allowing an open heart and an open flow of energy in you to be boundless. So rather than putting these arbitrary restrictions on it, like I'm in a meeting, I'm in an interview, I can't let this in. It's like, no, this is part of the beauty of my life. And of course, I'm going to kiss my son goodbye for the day.
Absolutely. And when I see other people doing this, like even the older me, so 2 years ago me that would have said, no, I'm in a meeting or I'm in this, it's important, I mean, really what's more important than that? But essentially when I'd see other people do it, I'd even go, that's the right thing to do. I mean, that's a beautiful thing to see. Yet for me, I'm just still regimented and do work, and and now I'm not sure how to describe it, because but the heart's sort of open heart that you're referring to makes sense. But this is what I'm saying. It's the work has done. I mean, because we've done no other work. My life hasn't changed in. I'm not. I mean, I'm always growing and learning, but we haven't taken anything else on in our lives that I could really attribute these changes to. And we do the work, you know, we do the self-pleasuring work, and we do all of this work every day to build stamina, to maintain my self-connection, to do all of that sort of stuff. It's just so I can't attribute these changes, these massive changes, to anything else. And whilst that was only small, that it's huge to me. So I now know he's gone to school with a need that he needed being filled. And it's a need for my wife, whether I believe it or not. That's a need my wife had as well. So, you know, as you know, in line with what your work's about, if we're not giving our partners what they need, and I mean all the, you know, you've really got to give it all the time in all the ways that they need it, then you're going to end up with a nagging, underfucked wife. You know,
Yeah, let's talk about that for a moment, because there's a phrase that I use in my work that, you know, there's that cliche, behind every good man is a woman. And I say, no. Actually, behind every good woman is a man on his knees, ferociously thrusting and giving her everything he's got. So what happens, what do you notice when you've put in more of that energy and time to help transform your woman into a radiantly well-fucked being? And then how does that also change what she gives back to you? Because my assertion, what you were saying before, when the woman is underfucked, she'll give you she'll give you that back. So that naggy, complaining, even belittling and frustrated energy that a lot of men receive from their woman is often in direct correlation to how underfucked she is, and not even attributing to that. We talked earlier about the horrific stats around premature ejaculation. That's, 75% of intercourse ends within 3 to 5 minutes because the man comes that quickly. And of course, in those situations, a woman will be underfucked and she will build a resentment against her partner that she might not even know is coming from that space or that reason, amongst perhaps other things too. So back to when you are helping to cultivate that in your woman, what do you notice in her, and then when she gives back to you?
Well, I noticed that I become in my life as a connection with my wife. So that's our business, that's our home, that's me as a dad. I become the king. I am her king, and she is my queen. And she treats me like a king, and it just in every way. And it's not always like that. So this is not this perfect fairy tale of life where I get to be the king and she gets to be the queen, because we still have our challenges and our ups and downs. But when we know that we're coming together and doing the work, and when we know that, she's well fucked and I'm well fucked, and we're bringing that energy into everything that we do, I imagine it's quite annoying for people around us to see how doting she is on me, and vice versa. It's a beautiful thing, and to be someone's king, to be the king in any sort of relationship, but not a bastard king, just someone who is looked up to as having taken care of the kingdom. It's a beautiful thing, and it just takes you to levels that I never knew possible. And same for her. I mean, the respect and love I have for Mandy as my queen and the mother, and and it just, all it means is that we just keep wanting to do more of what we're doing for one another. So, in those moments, in those darker moments where you're stressed and family, something's happened with family, or something's happened with work, or something's happened just in yourself, you've got this woman, or the woman's got this man that's going, well, you're my queen, I'm your king. What is it you need? Or as far as my wife's concerned, she knows what I need, and she just gives me what I need straight away. Like I know, and I'm learning to do the same in return. I'm not quite as, men I don't think are quite as intuitive, but I'm seeing what she needs, and she's explaining what she needs. She says, when I come and I feel like this is, as part of that radical honesty, she goes, this is what I'm wanting you to do. She says, what you do was perfect, but this is what I want you to do next time. And I go, great, okay, I can do that. That I can do. So, that's kind of what happens as a result. I get to be the king, which I love, and she gets to be the queen, which she loves. And our kids see this all the time. They just, they see us dancing in the kitchen, or because she needs it. Like she said, she says to me, you can never dance with me too much. Just grab me and dance with me anytime. And so, if she'll initiate or I'll initiate, the kids see it and they just go, oh, it's beautiful. Sometimes they just go, oh, it's disgusting. But they're doing that because of those social norms around, right, with the bullshit. It's just bullshit, and sometimes they'll do it. And I mean, we're fine if they do it once or twice, because it's just, they're having almost fun with it. But, if they go, oh, that's disgusting because we're kissing passionately in the kitchen, or then we'll call them out on it. And we'll go, why is that disgusting? What would you prefer to see? Would you prefer to see mum nagging dad about the fact that he didn't wash the dishes up properly, or he's at the computer too much, or is that what you'd prefer to see? No. Well, okay, so it's not really that disgusting, is it? It's quite beautiful. And yeah. So, those cultural norms that get dictated upon those little people, and then those little people grow up with those things. And that's why we end up having to come back and do this work, I guess, because we get all this cultural conditioning, this bullshit around what it should be and what it shouldn't be, when in actual fact, it should just be essentially what we've created, or what you're communicating it should be, and what we've now been able to create. And we had a good relationship always. We've always had a great relationship. But what it is now is just leveling up. And we, as high as our levels are right now, I still put us, 2 or 3 inches off the ground. Like, because every time we think we're somewhere, there's just a new level to go to. Which is the whole essence of learning. Like, you're never there. So
I love that. I mean, there's always another level to go. That's the core of everything that I teach. As long as you're still committed and you're showing up and you're doing this work/play, then you keep hitting new levels. You never get to this place of, the only people who don't grow, I always say, are those who are committed to stagnation. Right? If you're committed to staying in the same place, right, you won't grow. But if you're committed to growth, you'll always keep hitting new levels of learning, of enlightenment, of joy. And I love that example with your children, because you guys are setting that tone, and by osmosis, they will be picking up all of this modeling from you and these energies from you. But yeah, even at whatever ages they're at, they're still going to be taking in messaging, because that's true. The only place they could get a negative message about seeing their parents, affectionate with each other, would be from the outside world, someplace. I don't know where that's even coming from, but it is coming from somewhere, because that's not innate. And so I love that you use those as openings for dispelling myths and misinformation and negative conditioning.
Yeah, well, and we do. And it's funny because the kids, I don't know whether the team will get to meet Emil that was just saying goodbye to me, but my youngest is 7, and probably 2 years ago wouldn't have had an issue with us kissing passionately, my wife and I. And then as they journey through school, and I'm with you, I don't know where that messaging comes from, because I mean, we go to a very integrated kind of earth-based school as well. So the kids do. So, it's not a strong messaging, there's not a lot of devices and things like that, exposure to that, certainly not at school and not in our house. But so I don't know where that messaging comes, probably other kids, unfortunately, other kids from parents who are underfucked. and just, you know, it's not, it's, I mean, and I'm not judging anyone or anything. I'm just, that's possibly where it comes from. And that's fucking sad. Like, that's just, you know, and I mean, I'm not saying we haven't, Mandy and I have been there. Mandy's nagged me about stuff in the past before we've done the work and understood what's going on, that our glass needed cleaning and all that sort of stuff. So we like I say, I'm 2 or 3 inches levels off the ground. I'm not, you know, we got a lot of work to do. But I use the word work and play, and you know, I keep referring to the work, but my goodness, it's pretty fucking good work, you know.
Good work if you can get it. Hey,
come on, like, you know, it's unreal. And you know, we play a lot. Like our I guess our balancing of the feminine and the masculine and that sort of stuff has resulted in, you know, a box of toys and stuff that just you wouldn't have imagined. I wouldn't have imagined 2 years ago. And the role playing and all that sort of stuff, it's just the play. But it actually, you know, as much as it's a sexual play, and it happens in the bedroom, it completely materializes in what happens outside the bedroom. So, you know, to be masculine and to be in control and all that sort of stuff in the bedroom, and to have a partner that's comfortable enough to be able to go, I'm going to open myself up to this, whatever this, you know, whatever this is. Like you like you said before, could be getting fucked in the ass, could be deep throating, could be all of it. Could be an hour long 69 date. It could be whatever it is. It could be dressing up. You know, it could be me being submissive, her being more dominant. You know, what it just pushes you so much further in the outside world. You know, it makes you a better dad. It makes you a better husband. It makes you a better person at work. And of course, you're not underfucked. So that's bringing out it's you know, a whole nother energy that you kind of didn't probably have before either. So
that was a great summary, that last section there, about what it is to be a well-fucked man. I talk all the time about people, you know, the well-fucked woman concept, but you've articulated the well-fucked man. Is there anything else you would add to being what it is to be a well-fucked man?
Oh, I don't like it being pushed back onto me like that, Kim. But yeah, I guess it's a confidence. It's an ability to kind of look at things when they don't, you know, when they don't go the way you want them, and knowing what you need to do to change that. So, you know, I guess, yeah, I guess it's a confidence. It's just, and you know, it's good to be able to rely on yourself. And a lot of the work that you've put in that Sexual Mastery for Men is about dealing with your own kind of, you know, things that you need to do more of, become better at, you know, and all that sort of stuff. So it's great to be able to rely on yourself, but it's just beautiful to have someone that you can go and then rely on. So, you know, like if you were single and doing this work, there's just so much stuff you can get out of it. You learn to just work with yourself. And so a lot of that is even when you're in a relationship like I am, I'm still doing that. I'm still taking that work. I'm measuring my edges, taking myself further, you know, and I'm loving myself. I'm being okay with me and everything about it. But then I'm taking that into my partner, and then I'm taking that into work, and I'm taking it into my being a dad, you know, and a friend. You know, I've got a network of mates and stuff like that just, you know, it's just different. It's just better. So and you know, I talked to them about I talked to some of them about the work that we do. And they're just like, that's just, there's no way you're doing that. And I'm like, mate, it's absolutely, it's what we're doing. It's like, check this shit out. Check it out.
What do you mean there's no way that's what you're doing? What are they skeptical about?
Well, they're skeptical about the fact that I could be sitting at a dinner table with my wife, with just my wife and I having had dinner, talking about the challenges she's having, and me going, I know, look, what you need my cock in your mouth, and it needs to be deep. And so, like, I'm not being rude when I tell that story to these guys. I'm just saying, it's this is the relationship that we have, and they're like, man, did she just not talk to you for a week? What did she just tell you to get fucked? What did she do? I said, no, we went downstairs and we sorted that shit out. That's and they're like, bullshit. I'm like, you've actually got to look at the work. You got to look at this stuff. It's exactly what happens.
That is amazing. Do they ever come around? Are they, well, like, can I have that website? Or do they just kind of leave it in the realm of fantasy? Like, they believe you, but they really don't.
I've sent it to a couple of them. I've sent it to a few of them. I think one of my mates has picked it up. So I think it'll be that sort of thing that one grabs it, and then the next, maybe one more will grab it, and then you kind of got to be it. Like that story I describe about my exposure and coming into your work is probably really similar to a lot of people. And like I wasn't ready, and what I mean, until you actually get. It's just such a shame, because I think there's so much good to come out of it, doing the work and following this program. But you kind of got to be ready somehow. You've got to have some sort of catalyst that kind of goes for men, I guess. I don't know. For me, it was seeing the work impact on my wife for 5 weeks. There was just no way. So having exposure. Maybe I'm the exposure these guys need. Getting those stories, seeing them as being truth. Maybe that's the exposure. But there was no way I could not partake in the work, having seen what it was doing to Mandy. And I'm guessing if these guys believe the stories, there's no way they would not partake in the work.
Well, your situation with Amanda is such a great example, because that is really the advice that I give to people. Like, exactly what went down with you and her would be, okay, let's say somebody's interested in my work and they invite their partner, and their partner is kind of, I don't know, don't know about that, right? So I say to them, okay, so you go and you do the work. And usually what happens is then the changes start to be visible and tangible in you. And that other person's like, what's going on over there? And you're like, well, I'm just doing this work. And they're like, can I see some of that work? So, which is exactly what happened. And so that's the start of it. If they are inspired enough from what you said, and let's say they do bring it up to their partners, and their partners are like, oh, whatever, he's just trying to get more sex. Like, they just reduce it to some very basic cliche because they don't really know what else is possible. So he does the work and he begins showing up differently, and she'll feel that. Right. And that's typically what happens, as long as people are somewhat open to each other. If they're in a really, really closed off, estranged place, then perhaps not. But for the most part, that's the way of it. It's like this osmosis that happens, and people cannot help. Like you say, you cannot help but notice, and that cannot help but be drawn into it of like, well, why wouldn't I want, this is amazing. She's brought this in and she's doing it. I can feel it. I see and feel the changes. I want more.
Yeah. And that's exactly what it was. It was, you could see, you could feel they are positive changes that you're seeing. And it's not just the sex either. It's like, you can see the way your partner is handling different situations, and you're going, well, this is, these situations have been occurring for the 15 years that we've been married, and they're now being handled differently in a 5-week window or a 4-week window. I'm like, what the fuck? What? So, I mean, so you can't. I mean, you can if you're I think if you're on a program of stagnation, or you don't want to move forward, or you don't want to grow with your partner. And it is a bit scary. Like, it's a bit scary, particularly as that stat you talked about with 75% of guys, ejaculating in less than 3 minutes. I mean, if your partner starts doing a program around what for men is sexual mastery for men, and if that's us, then fuck, that's pretty scary. But then, you just kind of got to lean into it, which is a lot of what you talk about, and it's leaning into those areas that don't feel, comfortable. It's why, if you talk about the cum fairy that comes and just whacks you on the knob, it's like, well, that doesn't exist. So, what else do I do to fix this? What else do I need to do to fix that? And if that's your frame of mind, then you're about to level up fucking hugely in terms of growing from that place. So that's that space. And if you're not, then yeah, you're not. You're going to stay where you are. But there's a lot to be gained. A lot to be gained by doing the work. So
I love it. That's also well expressed. Is there anything else that you'd like to add that we haven't touched on that you would like men to know?
No. I like my stamina has improved through sort of just doing the work with Mandy, and again, it's a pretty good exercise regime you get to do to try and build your stamina. So it's just having more sex and making edging and going longer, and edging and going longer. So I like I said, we had our first sex weekend, which was kind of 72 hours, or 48 to 72 hours of almost nonstop making love and connect.
Almost nonstop having intercourse or some kind of sexual interaction for 48 to 72 hours.
Yeah. Yes. So it's not. I'm not saying that I was erect for 48 hours. It was just you would essentially. Our whole weekend was evolved around just being intimate. So, we basically refused to wear clothes for the weekend. We were in a nice, beautiful, remote sort of place not far from where we live, in like a cabin overlooking sort of a beautiful view of the ocean, and no one around. So, and occasionally, I think we went out for lunch one day. We put clothes on for that, obviously. We went out for lunch, but we started the weekend with what we call al fresco sex. So on the way to the lodge, we stopped on the side of the road, went in the bushes, and I said, we hadn't done that in a long time, and I was like, I want to have al fresco sex again, and then we probably had al fresco sex 3 times again over the weekend. But it was being naked, just loving each other, and it was long sex dates, like 2 or 3 hours. It was in the spa, it was in the bed, it was on the balcony looking over the ocean, but it was essentially just, we did sleep. We slept for maybe 5 hours each night, maybe. So, but otherwise it was that. And just what we came away with, oh my God, the way we came back to our lives after that weekend was literally fucking mind-blowing. What we brought to work, what we brought to our family. I was I was walking with a swagger without even knowing I was walking with a swagger. Mandy was just like, I walk into the room and she would just buckle at the knees. She was just like, oh my God. We had just fulfilled one another in the most amazing way on that weekend. And it lasted for like 3 weeks. 3 weeks of, it was just incredible. So,
the investment of going away for that weekend fulfills you. Like, you felt the obvious benefits of it for several weeks afterward.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. But I cannot express how different we were in our various environments as a result of that sex weekend. Like, it was huge. The positivity, the chemistry, the strength, the masculinity, the femininity, the submission for her to me, and it just, the whole thing was just so beautiful, so beautiful and amazing. We were in shock of, like, so we had our weekend, which was just perfect. And I was nervous about it too. Like, I was like, how, shit, am I going to do a whole weekend of sex? How is that going to work? But then came back into our lives and just, whoa, really? We were both like, literally, are you getting this? Are you seeing this? And I'm like, I'm seeing this. I'm living this part of it. And she's like, far. Like, you're walking in the room, honey, and I'm like, I'm just dropping. I'm wet. I'm like, this is just fucking amazing. Amazing.
And so this is a great key point, is I talk about things like the quarterly sex weekend and the weekly extended sex day, 3 hours, 2 to 3 hours, because when you go in deep and you have that no pressure, completely relaxed, can really unfold into these deeper spaces. You cultivate, you harness, and you harvest an enormous amount of energy. This really is the fundamentals of my work, is that sexual energy is life force energy. And when you're tuning into it consciously and you learn how to harness it and then channel it out into your life, everything else, it's miraculous. The changes that take place effortlessly in your outer life. You're not trying to make these things happen. You're not exerting some additional or mammoth amount of effort or any real different effort. It's come from your bed. It's come from your intimate connection and the fact that you have cultivated that sexual energy and you're now infusing it into every part of your lives.
Yeah, well, that's exactly what happened. And it was very surprising. Not surprising that we hadn't heard you talk about it. Surprising as to the way it had literally happened to us for that, like, 3 to 4 weeks, several weeks after. It was just incredible. And I know I keep saying we're not perfect, so we haven't been having our weekly sex dates in the last few weeks. And we've noticed it. That's what we were chatting about this morning before I came on the call. We were like, we've got to get back to those longer sex dates. We're doing all the other stuff, or a lot of the other stuff, and now, we chatted this morning. Went, you know what? We're not that. We can't let that go. I'm feeling it. I'm feeling it in my energy. I'm feeling it in our connection. So we got to stamp that shit out. Get back onto those long sex dates.
Yeah, but you have committed to your quarterly sex weekends, right? Because you've done now.
They're booked in advance. We've also had our second one. So, yeah. We're not going without those.
Well, this is what I love. Like, the proof is in the pudding, is that once you do these things, then the effects propel you to keep doing them, because you see the dramatic shifts that you're having in yourselves, in your relationship, in your outer life. And you're like, well, okay, you've come back from one sex weekend and you're already booking the next one, because you know what an important facet it is in your lives and a tool it is.
Yeah, you'd be absolutely booking the next weekend after your first one. Like, you 100%. I do want to say, and whether it goes to air or not, I do want to say to all the guys that do this course, and I think it's the same for the women that do the course, having chatted to Mandy about it, is what happens is not what you expect. So you probably know what's happening, Kim, but as a man that's doing the course, I'm none of it is really kind of making sense at the time. So, you start the course and you think, this is going to be great. I'm going to get, my stamina is going to get longer, and my cock is going to grow, and I'm going to pleasure my wife in more ways than, but it doesn't quite happen like that. It most definitely happens, but not necessarily like that. You kind of uncovering where you need to do the work. You know what I mean? So, you do a lot of processes around cleaning glass and lots of other stuff, and extending your edge and all that sort of stuff. There's nothing individually that I could look at that we've done in Sexual Mastery for Men and go, oh, that was the biggest thing for me. that all of it created an impact. All of it made a change. Some of it at the time seems like a negative change. Like I'm now thinking about stuff when I'm making love and I'm not getting as hard, or and I'm like, what's going on, or I don't last as long at a particular time. And then you kind of go, this is shit. This, but you keep doing the work. Like you turn up for the next salon, and then you go back and you revisit, you integrate, and you go, well, what didn't I do in salon, the first 4 or the first 5 or the first 6 or in our couples salon, what aren't I doing? And you find it. You see it, it's there, and you go, oh shit, I haven't really kind of gone there. And then so you go back and you revisit and you do that work, and then all of a sudden, boom, you're back and you've leveled up again. So you're at level 4, and then you went to level 3, and you got no idea why I went to level 3, but there's something going on. So then you go back and do the work, and then you end up at level 7. But unfortunately, the levels all changed, and now you're back at level 1, which is really a level 10, because the levels are like a million. They just keep going. But it's not what I expected, which it's a beautiful thing. It's not what I was expecting, and yet everything that I'd hoped for.
So I think what I hear you saying is that it was more multidimensional and deeper than what you had originally thought superficially from the outset. And then also, as you're going through stuff, because it is that way, that there might not be a clear trajectory, and that instead of when people feel they're not getting immediate, everyone's different. Some people get an immediate shift in some area, and then maybe are more, slower in another area, or you feel like you make a step forward and then backward. But ultimately, it's all feedback, is what you're saying. And so you look at that and go, okay, well, I haven't, what I say to people is, what have I missed, right? If something isn't happening, like let's say, my infamous phrase with orgasms, borrowed from somewhere else, if you build it, they will come. And if they're not coming, you haven't built something. There's something in the, foundation that you have missed. And so rather than, people feeling sorry for themselves, or, oh, when am I going to, I've been working so hard, when is this going to happen? You've missed something. Right? That is ultimately, that's radical self-responsibility to say, okay, if it's not happening, if it's not moving as fast as I want, then I've missed something. And then the onus is on you to go back and look and find it, and then shift it, and then boom, then you quantum leap higher than ever. Right? Because now you've got that piece that was left behind that you didn't realize. It's that metaphor of building a house with a strong foundation, right? And every layer that you build, if you've missed a spot and there's rotten wood in the corner of that house, even though you've maybe, built the rest of it up, first big storm, it's going to collapse or leak from that area because something's not right. And so all these messages are feedback from your body, your psyche, to say, all right, let's go back and do a little more focus here, and then we'll be, off to the races faster than before.
And that's exactly what I'm saying. So it's you think it's going to be one thing, it's always going to be different, because we've got, I wasn't exactly aware of my own cultural conditioning around some of the things that you work on. Like, I mean, I wasn't aware of them. And when we were asked to look at them as part of the program, I mean, even when I put down on paper things that I think, culturally, socially conditioned I am around sex, I didn't get them all down. And they may not have turned up for another 2 or 3 weeks. And then I've got to go back and relook at them. So, it's what I really want to say to the guys, that if there are guys watching this, men watching this, that go, I want to give that a go, I say 100% give it a go. I mean, without one hesitation, you have to give this a go. I would also say you have to do the work, and your own trajectory will be different to the guy beside you that's doing it. Even listening to the calls and the feedback that we get, it's always different. But I was lucky, because I was so lucky, because if something challenged my thought process around the program, i.e. I didn't get a result that I was wanting, Mandy was always, one she'd done Well Fucked Woman and she'd done Vaginal Kung Fu. So she was a 1 or 2 salons either ahead and so she would be able to kind of go, yep, no, not knowing specifically, but just, okay, let's go back and have a look. Let's just circle around and see what we've missed, because we missed something. Exactly what you're saying. But, sometimes you're not even aware that you're missing it. Like, you know what I mean? Because it's so deeply embedded in a dark space in your head where you kind of go, no, I don't want to think about that, or I do want to think about that, or I didn't know that I was thinking like that about it. And I'm talking about sex and the way we interact with people or children or partners or husbands or work and all that sort of stuff. It's how we feel about things can affect so much as what happens in the bedroom. So when it's not quite right, we've got to circle back around and work out what it is. But when you get it, like I'm describing just before this conversation, our sex weekend, I mean, holy moly, it's just, when it all lines up and you get it done, you get it right, that level is just, it's cataclysmic, amazing. But so I just communicate to the male team out there, just do the work, follow the process and do the work. And if it's not where you want it to be, circle around and do it again. So I'm doing sexual mastery for men again, which is beautiful because we get a lifetime subscription to it. Same as and Mandy wants to do sexual mastery for men. I want to do Well Fucked Woman, just because, not because I want to be a well fucked woman, although I like all the things that my wife likes. But ultimately, it's just more connecting. It's more understanding and connecting with one another. So I don't know if I'll do Vaginal Kung Fu, but we'll see.
I love what you're saying, because it's really like, I talk about, we're in this together, and our relationship is its own entity, right? This alchemizing cauldron where we can throw all of our stuff into and help each other to see our own blind spots, each other's blind spots. And so if one person and it's hard, we all have unconscious patterns and behaviors and defense mechanisms, but if we're working on it collaboratively as a loving unit, then we can help each other see. We're not feeling defensive or threatened by the other person. We're like, oh, okay, I hadn't thought of it that way, hadn't looked at it that way, thank you. And we get through it together. We illuminate it and then transform it together. So that's beautiful.
Yeah. Otherwise, that's about all I had. So.
Fantastic, Mark. Thank you so much for sharing your perspective as a well-fucked man and a well-fucked couple.
Thank you, Kim. Thanks for having us. That's it's been fantastic. We really love it, and we will be, I guess, lifetime fuckers. Let's put it that way.
That was awesome. I love hearing that level of depth from the male point of view. A well-fucked man indeed. For all of you who would also like to become well-fucked man and take everything to the next level, my Sexual Mastery for Men salon is now open for registration. In this 8-week online salon for men, you will learn how to last longer in bed with my massively effective techniques to be able to keep going for hours if you so desire, orgasms without ejaculation, how to use your sexual energy and relationship as a power and rejuvenation source in your life, how to achieve the deeper vaginal orgasms for women, cock lengthening and strengthening exercises, and much, much more. Go to kimanami.com, look for Sexual Savant Salons, and then click on Sexual Mastery for Men. Come one, come all. Thank you so much for listening. If you haven't already, subscribe and also leave a review. And send someone else the gift of a healthy libido and an off-the-charts love life by sharing this episode with them. We'll be back next week, and in the meantime, many happy orgasms.